The scent of lavender and eucalyptus usually filled the air at the Elysian Spa, a calming balm that settled over every client and employee alike. My name is Rowan Ellis, and for the past 3 years I had been the lead receptionist here, nestled in the heart of Denver, Colorado. At 28, I'd cultivated a quiet, observant nature, a necessary shield in a world where people often showed their worst selves when they thought no one was truly watching. My job was to orchestrate calm, to ensure every massage, every facial, every moment of serene escape was perfect. Most days it was a beautiful lie, a pleasant illusion I helped maintain, but some days that illusion shattered. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a particularly bright spring day that felt wrong for the storm that was brewing. The spa was bustling, the gentle murmur of conversation and the soft chimes of the relaxation music creating a peaceful hum. I was at the front desk, arranging appointments, when the glass doors swung open with a dramatic flourish that immediately caught my attention. In walked Serafina Hayes, a name that still tastes like bile in my mouth. She was a woman who commanded a room not with grace but with an almost predatory confidence, her designer clothes and perfectly coiffed blonde hair screaming high maintenance. I knew Serafina. She was a regular, but not one of our favored ones. She had a history of complaining about everything from the water temperature in the hydrotherapy pools to the lack of proper ambience in the meditation room, always demanding discounts and special treatment. Her presence alone often caused a ripple of dread among the staff. Today, however, her arrival was different. Her usual imperious air was replaced by a furious, almost manic energy. Her eyes, usually cold and calculating, blazed with an unrestrained rage. She marched straight to the desk, her heels clicking a furious rhythm on the polished marble floor. "Where is he?" she demanded, her voice a low, dangerous growl, though loud enough to carry through the hushed reception area. "Where is Leo Maxwell?" My fingers instinctively tightened around the stylus I was holding. Leo Maxwell was one of our most beloved clients. A kind, unassuming man in his early 40s, he was an architect, always punctual, always polite, and often brought us small boxes of artisanal chocolates from a local shop. He was currently in a deep tissue massage, a fact I was sure Serafina was aware of given their complicated past. Serafina and Leo had dated for about a year, a tumultuous period I'd witnessed from the periphery through her constant, demanding phone calls to him during his appointments or her dramatic arrivals to surprise him. Their breakup a few months prior had been messy, involving public arguments in our very lobby, which I'd always had to deftly de-escalate. "Miss Hayes, please keep your voice down," I said, my tone as calm and steady as I could make it. "Mr. Maxwell is in a session. He cannot be disturbed." Her eyes narrowed, dark and venomous. "Oh, he will be disturbed, I insist." She slammed a hand flat on the marble counter, a sound that echoed unnaturally in the tranquil space. "That man is a liar and a cheat. He defrauded me. He swindled me out of money, out of my reputation. He promised me a future, then left me with nothing but debt." A gasp rippled through the waiting area. Several clients, wrapped in plush robes, looked up from their magazines, their serene expressions replaced by shock and curiosity. My stomach clenched. This was exactly what I'd feared. Serafina wasn't just angry, she was performing. "I have proof," she continued, pulling out her phone and shoving it across the counter. On the screen, I saw blurry screenshots of what looked like bank statements and text messages, interspersed with distorted photos of luxury items. He took everything from me. My family fortune, my inheritance, everything I had saved. He conned me into investing in his fraudulent schemes, promised me huge returns, and then vanished with my money. He's a monster, a con artist. Her voice escalated, growing louder, more frantic, deliberately dramatic. Clients started whispering, their eyes darting between Serafina's enraged face and my own, silently asking for an explanation. I felt a cold dread settle in my chest. This wasn't just a breakup spat. This was an orchestrated attack, and Serafina was a master of manipulation. I had seen her pull similar stunts, albeit on a smaller scale, when she wanted to get her way or make someone else look bad. "Miss Hayes, this is highly inappropriate," I said, trying to lower the volume of her tirade. "If you have a grievance, you should pursue it through proper channels, not here in a private establishment." "Proper channels?" she shrieked, her voice cracking with feigned emotion. "He's too clever for proper channels. He manipulates everyone, makes them believe he's this kind, upstanding man. But he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He targeted me, a vulnerable woman, and systematically ruined my life. I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth about Leo Maxwell." She started sobbing, large, theatrical tears rolling down her cheeks, though her eyes remained sharp, watching the effect she was having on the onlookers. My mind raced. This wasn't just damaging Leo's reputation, it was damaging the spa's. This kind of public spectacle was anathema to our brand of tranquility and discretion. As a lead receptionist, my training kicked in. I immediately called security, a discreet two-tap code on my desk phone, but I knew it would take a few minutes for them to arrive. In the meantime, Serafina was doing maximum damage. She was repeating her accusations, getting louder, her performance growing more convincing to an untrained eye. She pointed at me, accusing me of complicity, of trying to cover for Leo. "You all protect him, don't you? Because he's wealthy, because he pretends to be a pillar of the community, but he's a criminal." That word, criminal, hung in the air, heavy and damning. Leo himself emerged then, drawn by the commotion. He was still wearing his spa robe, his hair slightly disheveled from the massage, a look of pure confusion and then dawning horror on his face. He looked utterly bewildered, like a man who had woken up in a nightmare. Serafina, what are you doing? He asked, his voice strained, incredulous. She spun around, her face twisting into a mask of pure fury. Oh, playing the innocent now, are we, Leo? After everything you've done? After you left me destitute, after you stole my future? You think I'd let you get away with it? I'm going to make sure everyone knows what a despicable, fraudulent person you are. She started shouting specific financial figures, dates, and what sounded like details of a failed investment, all presented in a way that made Leo sound like a master con artist. The specific allegations were vague enough to be hard to disprove on the spot, but concrete enough to sound convincing to anyone listening. It was brilliant in a twisted, horrifying way. Serafina was performing a character assassination, right here, right now, in the most public way she could manage within these walls. My heart ached for Leo. I had seen enough people like Serafina in my life, enough manipulators who twisted reality to suit their narratives, enough victims who were left reeling, unable to defend themselves against such audacious lies. My own family had been torn apart by a similar character, someone who had charmed and then systematically exploited my grandmother, leaving her financially ruined and emotionally shattered. The law had been slow, inefficient, and ultimately unable to truly bring justice. The raw, sickening feeling of helplessness I'd felt then, watching someone I loved be destroyed, surged through me now. Serafina's words, her performance, resonated with a pain I had thought long buried. She was the embodiment of everything I despised: entitlement, dishonesty, the complete disregard for another person's life or reputation, and the horrifying ability to weaponize lies. Her accusations against Leo, which I intuitively knew to be false, ignited a spark of cold fury within me. This wasn't just about the spa or even about Leo. This was about a pattern, a type of person who consistently got away with inflicting pain, leaving a trail of destruction behind them. This time I wouldn't just be a witness. Security finally arrived, two large men in dark suits, and gently but firmly escorted Serafina out, her protests and continued accusations echoing down the hall. But the damage was done. The serene bubble of the Elysian spa had burst. Leaf stood there, pale and shaken, muttering apologies to the horrified clients who were now gathering their things, clearly unsettled. I watched him, my jaw tight. He looked defeated. And in that moment, something shifted within me. I was tired of watching people like Serafina win. I was tired of the innocent suffering while the truly guilty walked away unscathed. My quiet, observant nature, usually a tool for efficiency, began to morph into something else, a silent promise. Serafina Hayes would not get away with this, not this time. My internal resolve hardened, and a very quiet, very dangerous thought began to form: I would find a way to make her pay. I would use my unique position, my access, my very specific set of observational skills, and my understanding of people like her to turn her own tactics against her. The idea was chilling but also exhilarating. For anyone wanting to see justice served, or perhaps a more satisfying resolution to such injustices, remember to subscribe to Tales of Revenge channel for new revenge stories daily. I knew I had a story to tell, and it was just beginning. Act 2, The Silent Architect. The fallout from Serafina's calculated outburst was immediate and ugly. The spa, usually a sanctuary of calm, became a hive of anxious whispers. Clients, shaken by the public spectacle, started canceling appointments. The spa's reputation, meticulously built over 2 decades, took a direct hit. Word spread through Denver's high society like wildfire, fueled by Serafina's continued targeted attacks on social media, where she amplified her false claims, painting Leo Maxwell as a financial predator and herself as a tragic, wronged victim. She was masterful at playing the part, garnering sympathy from a wide audience who knew nothing of the truth. Leo, once a picture of quiet dignity, was shattered. He called the spa a few days later, his voice flat, devoid of its usual warmth. He was canceling all his future appointments. He mentioned vague legal troubles, the difficulty of disproving a negative, and the sheer mental exhaustion of battling a well-executed smear campaign. She's good, Rowan, he'd said, a bitter laugh escaping him. She knows how to make people believe her. He told me his architectural firm was losing clients, potential projects were being put on hold, and even his personal life was suffering. He was considering leaving Denver just to escape the shadow Serafina had cast over him. His despair resonated deeply with me. It was the same helplessness I'd witnessed in my grandmother's eyes. This wasn't just about money or a breakup, it was about reputation, about a person's life being systematically dismantled by someone else's malice. My principals, usually a quiet guide, began to shout. Serafina couldn't be allowed to win. My quiet observations of Serafina over the years began to coalesce into a clearer picture. She was a narcissist through and through. She thrived on attention, on being seen as the victim, on controlling narratives. Her entire life seemed to be a performance designed to elicit admiration or sympathy, or failing that, fear. She was also incredibly entitled, believing she deserved preferential treatment and utterly incapable of taking responsibility for her own actions. These weren't just character flaws, they were weapons she wielded, and I realized they could also be her weaknesses. My first step was to discreetly gather information. As lead receptionist, I had access to client records, appointment histories, and a surprisingly vast network of gossip and hushed conversations that floated through the spa's hallowed halls. I started cross-referencing Serafina's past complaints, her demands, the dates of her appointments with Leo, and any little tidbits I'd overheard. I noticed a pattern: every time Serafina was in financial distress, which seemed to be often despite her outward display of wealth, She'd suddenly demand more from Leo or escalate her dramatic public displays. She'd often complain about her negligent accountant or her unreliable trust fund payments. I also observed how she treated the staff, from the cleaners to the therapists. She was dismissive, rude, and often left scathing reviews online if she didn't get her way, always hinting at legal action. Her public persona was the wronged angel, her private one a raging tyrant. This contrast was key. I began to pay extra attention to her social media, not just her public posts, but subtle hints she dropped in stories or comments, things she thought only her immediate circle would see. She often posted pictures of lavish dinners, expensive new clothes, and exotic vacations, all while publicly claiming financial ruin at Leo's hands. The hypocrisy was infuriating. Yet she managed to maintain a loyal following, proof of her manipulative charm. The spa management, though sympathetic to Leo, was primarily concerned with damage control for our business. They asked me to draft a polite, neutral statement regarding the incident, emphasizing our commitment to privacy and a tranquil environment. It felt like papering over a gaping wound, but I did it. It was part of the calm facade I maintained, a necessary distraction for my true purpose. I began to work late, staying behind after everyone else had left. I started documenting everything. Not just notes, but a timeline of Serafina's behavior, her specific accusations, and any counter evidence I could piece together from spa records, public articles, or even just memory. I used a burner phone and a secure cloud storage account for everything, meticulous in my discretion. My goal wasn't just to disprove her, it was to expose her. To turn her own weapon, public perception, against her. One evening, while cross-referencing Serafina's old appointment records with her public social media posts, I stumbled upon something significant. She had claimed that Leo had coerced her into a disastrous investment on a specific date, causing her immediate financial hardship. Yet our records showed she had paid for an extravagant full-day spa package, including exclusive treatments and rare imported products, on that very same day. She had paid for it in cash, a large sum, not by card, which was unusual for her. This directly contradicted her narrative of immediate destitution. It was a small detail, but it was a crack in her carefully constructed lie. The more I dug, the more cracks I found. Her claims of a vast inheritance being stolen didn't quite line up with her family history. Her parents were well off, but not ridiculously wealthy, and certainly not with the kind of liquid assets she described. Her frequent complaints about delayed trust fund payments seemed to conveniently coincide with her need for large sums of money for luxury purchases, not actual bills. It painted a picture of someone living well beyond their means, consistently using others to bail herself out, and then blaming them when the inevitable financial house of cards collapsed. I started to think about how she managed to maintain this illusion. She had a tight-knit circle of friends, mostly women from affluent backgrounds, who seemed to hang on her every word. She'd often bring them to the spa, performing the role of the generous hostess while discreetly putting their treatments on her tab, a tab that often went unpaid for weeks, sometimes months, before she'd finally settle it with an angry phone call to our accounting department, accusing us of overcharging her. These friends were her audience, her enablers. They needed to see her as the victim, the powerful, wronged woman. My resolve deepened. I knew I couldn't just go to the police. Serafina was too good at muddying the waters, at twisting facts. This required a different kind of justice, one that exploited her weaknesses. Her need for attention, her carefully curated image, her absolute reliance on public perception, these were her Achilles heel. I needed to expose her not through legal channels, but through public humiliation and ridicule, the very things she inflicted upon others. I spent weeks meticulously crafting a plan. It was intricate, subtle, and designed to unravel her credibility piece by piece. It required patience, perfect timing, and a deep understanding of human psychology, especially the kind of twisted psychology Serafina possessed. My quiet resourcefulness, usually used for booking a last-minute appointment or finding a forgotten item for a client, was now repurposed for something far more significant. One day, an opportunity presented itself. The Elysian Spa was hosting its annual charity gala, an exclusive, high-profile event for Denver's elite, benefiting a local children's hospital. Serafina, despite her recent drama, had wangled an invitation through a mutual friend of the spa owner. Of course she would. This was her stage, her chance to appear gracious and benevolent, even as she was destroying Leo's life. Leo himself was on the guest list, as he often donated architectural services to local charities, but I knew he wouldn't come. He was too wounded. This gala was the perfect setting. It was a controlled environment, but public enough, with enough influential people present to make an impact. This was where Serafina truly felt at home, where she was at her most performative. It was also where she would be most vulnerable. My mind started piecing together the final steps. I needed an ally, someone inside her circle, or at least someone who could observe her closely without suspicion. I thought of a particular spa therapist, Lena, a kind, insightful woman who had also quietly expressed her dismay over Serafina's behavior. Lena had seen Serafina's true colors during her sessions and had confided in me about Serafina's constant boasts and veiled threats. Lena was principled like me, and she too had a quiet loathing for manipulation. I knew I could trust her. I approached Lena cautiously, not revealing my full intentions, but hinting at my deep concern for Leo and my belief that Serafina was a fraud. Lena, perceptive as she was, quickly understood. She agreed to help, her quiet indignation mirroring my own. We would work together, two quiet women, to expose a loud, venomous lie. For anyone who believes in standing up to injustice, or perhaps finding a way to ensure such people face the consequences, consider subscribing to Tales of Revenge channel for new revenge stories daily. The stage was set and the curtain was about to rise. Act 3. The unveiling. The night of the Elysian Spa charity gala arrived, draped in the usual elegant trappings, sparkling chandeliers, classical music, and the scent of expensive perfume. My stomach fluttered with a nervous energy that belied my calm exterior. I was dressed in a simple, elegant black gown, blending into the background just as I intended. I was here as a staff member, directing guests, ensuring seamless flow, but my true purpose was far more intricate. Serafina Hayes swept in, a vision in emerald green, her face a mask of practiced benevolence. She air-kissed acquaintances, flashed her brightest, most sympathetic smile, and nodded gravely when anyone expressed concern about poor Leo. Her performance was flawless, a masterclass in calculated victimhood. She was in her element, basking in the attention, completely unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to crumble. My plan was a delicate dance, a series of micro-actions designed to slowly but surely chip away at her facade. Lena, my quiet accomplice, was positioned at the champagne bar, observing Serafina's interactions. We had rehearsed our subtle signals. The first step involved a seemingly innocuous piece of information. I had previously confirmed through a series of discreet inquiries that Serafina's main source of income wasn't an inheritance, but rather her wealthy estranged uncle who had a strong philanthropic streak. He was attending the gala, a silent patron in the corner. He also happened to be a stickler for honesty and integrity, and abhorred any form of public scandal, especially one involving family. My first move was to accidentally drop a small, beautifully bound copy of our Spa-S client code of conduct near Serafina as she was chatting animatedly with a group of influential donors. It was a subtle act, but designed to draw attention to our values: discretion, respect, and above all, truthfulness. She didn't notice it, but a few of the people she was talking to did, their eyes lingering on the title. A tiny seed of doubt planted. Next, during the silent auction, I noticed Serafina bidding enthusiastically on a lavish luxury retreat package, one of the most expensive items. Simultaneously, she was tearfully recounting her financial ruin to another sympathetic attendee. This blatant contradiction was the first direct hit. I discreetly sent a text message to Lena. Champagne bar left. Lena, seeing the signal, smoothly navigated towards the champagne bar where Serafina was now holding court. Lena, who was normally quite reserved, engaged her in conversation, subtly probing her about her financial struggles. Lena's words were carefully chosen, appearing sympathetic but designed to elicit more self-pitying boasts from Serafina about her unfortunate circumstances and the monster who ruined her. As Serafina launched into a particularly dramatic monologue about Leo's alleged fraud, Lena subtly ensured that their conversation drifted near a discreetly placed high-quality audio recorder I had hidden in a potted plant. While Serafina was distracted, I moved to the main stage where the host was preparing for the live auction. My role was to manage the presentation slides. I had prepared a special slide, meticulously designed to look like a standard spa advertisement. It featured our beautiful facilities, serene images, and at the bottom, in small, almost unnoticeable text, a subtle disclaimer about the importance of client privacy and the spa's commitment to protecting its clients from false accusations and public defamation. It was subtle but just prominent enough to be read by the sharp-eyed. This slide I knew would be shown right before the biggest auction item, a year of complimentary spa services, a prize I knew Serafina coveted. As the auction began, Serafina became increasingly agitated. She desperately wanted that spa package. She began to bid aggressively, openly displaying her wealth, oblivious to the fact that her public display of affluence directly contradicted her narrative of financial ruin. Her estranged uncle, observing from across the room, looked increasingly uncomfortable. My next move was to accidentally email the main presentation slides, including my special one, to all the key attendees and sponsors, claiming it was for their convenience. This meant everyone would have a digital copy of the slide with its subtle, damning message long after the physical presentation ended. It was untraceable back to me directly. The moment of truth arrived during the live auction. The host announced the grand prize, the year-long spa membership. Serafina's eyes gleamed with avarice. She raised her paddle confidently, loudly. $100,000. She declared, her voice ringing out, defying all her previous claims of destitution. A hush fell over the room. That was a truly exorbitant bid for a spa membership, even this one. People exchanged glances. The seed of doubt I'd planted earlier about the code of conduct was starting to sprout. Murmurs began to ripple through the room. It was then that Lena, with expert timing, approached the auctioneer. She whispered something, seemingly a private question about the next item, but I knew what she was doing. She was making sure the audio recorder hidden nearby picked up Serafina's loud bid and her accompanying dramatic sighs of financial hardship to other guests, captured minutes earlier. My final, crucial step involved Serafina's phone. I had learned through casual observation that Serafina, like many high-profile individuals, used an encrypted messaging app for her most sensitive communications. She was also notoriously careless with her device, often leaving it unattended on tables, trusting in the security of the spa environment. My quiet resourcefulness meant I'd learned how to identify the specific brand and model of her phone. I'd also purchased a discrete device readily available online, capable of cloning certain types of Wi Fi connections, tricking a phone into connecting to it. During a brief interval when Serafina excused herself to the restroom, leaving her phone on a small table near her champagne glass, I seized the moment. I had practiced this. My hands moved quickly, expertly. I brushed past the table, seemingly dropping my own napkin. As I bent to pick it up, my hidden device, no bigger than a USB stick, briefly connected to her phone. It downloaded a small, innocuous file designed to look like a system update, but its true purpose was to establish a covert connection, a backdoor for data retrieval, particularly from her communication apps. It wasn't a hack, not in the traditional sense, but an exploitation of an open, unsecured connection. Within seconds, it was done. I pocketed my device, picked up my napkin, and smoothly walked away. The physical connection was brief, but the digital one was now established. Over the next few days, from the safety of my home, I began to passively collect data. Not all of her data, but snippets, patterns, and crucially specific conversations she had with a close friend, a woman named Bridget, who was also a frequent spa client. These conversations, downloaded through the subtle backdoor, confirmed everything. Serafina hadn't lost money to Leo. She had gambled away a significant portion of her allowance on a risky, ill-advised cryptocurrency investment that had crashed. She had then concocted the story about Leo to deflect blame, gain sympathy, and pressure him into bailing her out, or at least silencing her with a large sum. She had openly admitted to fabricating evidence, creating fake text messages, and even coaching Bridget on how to corroborate her lies. She also detailed her constant demands for loans from her uncle and her plans to bleed him dry. It was all there in her own words, undeniable proof of her malice, her manipulation, and her financial deceit. The audio recording Lena had helped me obtain corroborated these details, capturing Serafina's boasts about defrauding Leo and her pleasure in destroying his reputation. My revenge would be elegant, public, and delivered by her own hand. I created an anonymous email address and a new encrypted folder. I compiled all the evidence, the contradictory spa payment records, the screenshots of her conversations, the audio recording from the gala. I pieced together a compelling, concise narrative that exposed her lies and her true motives, backed by her own words. I included a clear, verifiable timeline of her public accusations versus her private financial activities. Then I took the most calculated risk of all. I sent the entire dossier anonymously to the chairman of the Children's Hospital Board, the very charity the gala had benefited, and to the editor of the city's most respected investigative newspaper. I also sent it to a few of Serafina's closest, most influential friends, the ones she had repeatedly boasted to, making sure they received it from a source that appeared to be one of their own trusted circles, perhaps another disgruntled society member. And finally, to her estranged uncle, a man who believed deeply in the charity and in integrity. The fallout was spectacular. The article broke 2 days later, not in the gossip columns, but on the front page of the investigative section. It was meticulously researched, quoting sources who wished to remain anonymous. My dossier had been incredibly thorough, detailing the discrepancies in Serafina's claims and hinting at the extensive evidence of her calculated deception. The specific details from her private conversations, carefully paraphrased to protect my source method, were damning. The charity board launched an immediate internal investigation, horrified by the potential implications of having a key donor implicated in such a scandal. Her uncle, a man of quiet integrity, was reportedly furious. The social media channels that had once championed Serafina as a victim now buzzed with outrage. Her friends, seeing the undeniable proof, began to distance themselves. Her carefully constructed image shattered, replaced by public scorn. The narrative flipped completely. She was no longer the wronged woman, she was the manipulator, the fraudster, the truly despicable character. The Elysian Spa, meanwhile, quietly issued a statement. It was short, professional, and did not mention Serafina by name. It simply reiterated the spa's commitment to client confidentiality and a peaceful environment for all patrons, while also stating in measured tones that they would always support truth and integrity. It was a subtle but clear vindication of Leo. Leo Maxwell, initially bewildered by the sudden turnaround, soon understood. He called me, his voice filled with a mixture of shock and overwhelming gratitude. He had seen the article, seen his name cleared, seen Serafina's lies laid bare. His architectural firm was already seeing a surge in inquiries. His life was slowly, painstakingly being put back together. He knew someone had fought for him quietly, anonymously. He didn't know it was me, but he thanked me profusely for simply being there that day. As for Serafina, the last I heard, she had retreated from Denver's social scene. Her attempts to spin the new narrative failed spectacularly. Her once loyal friends had abandoned her. Her uncle had reportedly cut off her allowance entirely. She had no one to blame but herself and no one left to manipulate. The public humiliation she had so gleefully inflicted upon Leo had boomeranged back onto her tenfold. She was stripped of the very things she valued most, her image, her perceived power, and her control over others. My part in it remained entirely anonymous. I continued my work at the Elysian Spa, booking appointments, managing the front desk, maintaining the illusion of calm. But beneath the surface, a profound satisfaction resonated within me. I had used my quiet observation, my principles, and my resourcefulness to right a wrong, to give justice to someone who had been unjustly maligned, and to ensure that a manipulative person finally faced consequences. The raw, sickening feeling of helplessness was gone, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's a silent, meticulously crafted plan that uses truth to dismantle a lie piece by painful piece. It was a testament to the fact that even the quietest among us can wield the sharpest blade, especially when guided by principle. For those who enjoy stories of cunning and vindication, remember to subscribe to Tales of Revenge channel for new revenge stories daily.